Hi everybody, hope you're doing well on your dissertation journey. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about connecting with content experts. And before we get into the details, I do want to note that I'm approaching this conversation from a Grand Canyon University perspective. The process that we follow at GCU is specific, and it may not necessarily be what you do at your university, but there may be some principles that you can apply in your approach. So at GCU and in most universities, there are 3 members on your committee. First of all, you're assigned a dissertation chair who is your main advisor. You will also be assigned a methodologist who will help you in drafting your data analysis sections in Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. And then finally, you will have a content expert who will support you in the organization and development of your literature review. And the one person on your dissertation committee that you get to choose is the content expert. So how do you find a content expert? You want to put some thought into this, and at GCU there's 2 ways to approach this. First of all, you can choose a known researcher in your field, in your industry, someone who is a known researcher on your specific topic. One thing you want to keep in mind is they need to be approved at GCU. So if they are not already on the approved list of content experts, they will need to go through an approval process. So you want to keep that in mind if from a timing perspective. Okay, so if there's someone that you want to have included that's not on that approved list, you want to reach out to them, find out if they will be your content expert earlier rather than later so you can go through the approval process before you get too far down the dissertation path. The second approach is simply to choose a content expert from the GCU approved list. So if you go onto the DC network and you search content expert, you will find a document that includes all of the approved content experts, their contact information, and also their areas of expertise. Okay? And you can go through that list and you can select whomever you'd like to reach out to. My recommendation is that you do a search on your topics, your variables, your phenomena, and you choose 5, 7, 10 different potential content experts and you rank them. And I'll tell you why here in a minute. But you rank them. Here's my first choice. This is the person I would really like to have as my content expert. Second choice, third choice, etc. And have a list of people that you would like as potential content experts. Not everyone will be available. Not everyone is still doing content expert work. So you want to have a list of who you prefer. Okay? When you reach out to your content expert to ask them to join your committee, there's a couple of things you want to consider when you send out this email. One, avoid sending out a mass email to a whole bunch of people at the same time, or sending single emails to multiple people at the same time. Okay? This is why I recommend thinking through, looking at who you would like to have on your committee, and then ranking them. Send that email out to your top choice, then your second choice, then your third choice. Okay? When you send that email, you want to make sure that you are asking them to get an answer back to you within a specific time frame. And then you always want to include your 10 strategic points so that they can look it over and make an informed decision. Okay? When you send out a mass email, it creates a perception that you haven't really thought about who would be best suited for your dissertation as your content expert. When you email multiple people at the same time, it creates a bit of an inconvenience for the potential content experts. So in my case, I've received an email from someone asking me to be their content expert. I took a couple of days. I was in meetings. I was out of town. I finally had a chance to read the email and respond and said, I would love to be your content expert. Happy to join your committee. And I got an email back that said, I already got someone, thanks. So I took time out of my day, didn't know that they had reached out to multiple people, but it did not come across well to me. So I want you to consider what you are doing with the content experts when you send out mass emails or you email multiple people at the same time. Okay. If you plan it appropriately, you can email and contact down through your ranked list and get to someone who is the most or who is a good fit for your dissertation. When you are putting your email together, what should you say? So include a brief introduction, explain why you're sending them an email, make sure that you attach your 10 strategic points or some sort of a short synopsis of what your dissertation is about. Okay? And then again, make sure that you're asking for a response by a certain date. Okay? That way, if they're out of town and you send an email Monday asking them to respond to you by Friday, if they're out of town on vacation and they don't respond, at least when they see the email, they will see that the time has passed and they'll know that you have probably moved on to someone else. Okay? Also, when you ask for a response by a certain date, when you don't get a response back, whether they don't check their email, they're not doing it anymore, it got lost in their junk folder, that's a signal to you to move on to the next person on your list. Okay? And then also in your email, offer to meet them on a call if they would like to. Sometimes some people will just review the information and they want to be your content expert simply because they find your topic interesting. Other times, they might want to get a sense for who you are and get to know you a little bit before they agree to be your content expert. So always be willing to meet with them on a call, Zoom, just a short 30-minute, 15-minute conversation, just so you guys can get a feel for each other. Okay? Let's talk a little bit about timing. When are you going to need your content expert ready to review your materials? So typically what happens is you will get your dissertation chair and then you will have a course or two before you are ready for your content expert to provide any feedback on chapter 2. Okay? So you will not need them to be available until you have been assigned your dissertation chair and you have prospectus approval and you're already writing into chapter 2. So you've got some time. Now, when should you reach out to the content expert? What I did in my experience, and there's probably other experiences that are a little bit different, but I reached out to my content experts 3 or 4 months before I was assigned my dissertation chair. And I gave them kind of a range. So I think I sent my email out in February or March and told them that I was probably going to need them around October, November of that same year. Okay, so I gave them a sense for, we're not quite there, but if you're available in October, November, that's when we would like to have you join. Okay, so you can reach out to them and secure a content expert before you get your dissertation chair. And I highly recommend at least having someone who said they would consider it and they're willing to participate. Okay, you don't want to have to rush and try and get someone and it end up being a busy time, or the person that's, your top 3 people are too busy. Okay. So think about that. You can reach out to them before you get your dissertation chair, but they won't actually be needed to review your materials until you have an approved prospectus and you're into writing chapter 2. The last thing that I want you to consider is how you're going to communicate with your content expert during your dissertation. You'll want to discuss this with your chair because different folks have different preferences on how you communicate with them. In most cases, once you are in the dissertation process and your content expert is contracted to your committee, your chair will want to handle all of the communications with them. Okay, so you will submit everything to the chair will send them to the content expert. They'll provide your feedback to the chair will filter that, get it back to you. In other cases, the chair may allow you to have direct communication with your content expert. Text them, email them directly, as long as you copy your chair and let them know your conversations. Okay, so make sure that you're talking about this process with your chair so it's clear to you how you'll need to communicate and work with your content expert. Okay, hopefully this is helpful for you and giving you some ideas on how to approach your content expert. And best of luck with your dissertation.